I'm excited for our next speaker, Bernhard Hecker. He's the Vice President of Business Development in Europe for Cryptowerk. Now, that sounds quite German. It's actually a US-based company with German heritage. Bernhard has 30 years of product management experience in IT. And since February, he is now working in a startup that is called Cryptowerk, and he's going to give us a beginner's class of how to get your hands around blockchain. So please help me welcome to the stage today, Bernhard Hecker. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Hello, world. We had a video stream yesterday as well. We do have a live video stream today. I did a pretty much similar talk in Hall 13 at a smaller stage yesterday, and we had 14,000 live viewers, so we expect like double here today, as the audience is a lot bigger here as well. Of course, you may take pictures of my presentation at any time. Please make sure that I'm in the pictures as well, and then you tweet them. Make me famous. I love that. If you want to have the presentation afterwards, come to me. I'll be at the information desk for at minimum half an hour. Take your credit cards, not credit cards, those two, but your business cards. And I will send you the presentation. Okay, this is the new CEBIT. It's a festival and an exhibition, and it has a modern marketing approach. And when I saw this picture the first time, that was last year at CEBIT, I was thinking about, like, what is this guy looking at? What is this guy thinking about? What is this guy asking himself? And I found a question that he might be thinking about. That is, how do I get beyond a PowerPoint slide that says, I'm doing something with blockchain? I do not see any CIO or CDO here in Europe that I've been talking to in the last 12 months that has the guts to say, I'm not doing a blockchain project. So everybody does one. Yeah? Typically, a lot of people say, I'm doing a blockchain project until they get a PowerPoint slide up at a conference like this, where they can say, I'm doing a blockchain project, and not a lot of stuff happens ever after. I'd like to talk about a few things that you could do at your daily work, how to get your hands around blockchain, how to make use out of blockchain to make it a useful, interesting experience, learn something, and be profitable for your company and maybe for a lot of people around you. But let's start with American presidents and the internet. You maybe have heard the famous quote from Abraham Lincoln, everything you read on the internet is true. That actually shows us that any information that you read on the internet, any information that gets transmitted over the internet can be, or maybe, or should be questioned. Is it really true what you're seeing? Are the transactions that you're getting trustworthy or not? So the friendly person, the friendly guy that was just speaking and talking said blockchain is all about trust. And that's what we actually see. And Mark Andreessen, another very interesting person, he actually invented and built the Netscape Navigator, and he's one of the most visionary venture capitalists in the Silicon Valley. When he looked at blockchain and the technology, he said, oh my God, this is it. This is the big breakthrough. This is the underlying trust technology that the internet has always been missing. Why is that, and what am I saying? Well, Satoshi Nakamoto, if you've probably seen that, brought out this white paper in 2008, and where he or whoever Satoshi Nakamoto is, we don't know, wrote about like how this peer-to-peer electronic cash system that we know as Bitcoin or the blockchain today should work. And there's three interesting things in the first chapter of that white paper. That it says it's about electronic cash, it's about a system that prevents double spending, and it has timestamp transactions. It ends up being a distributed network. We had just a question about distributed networks and why is it important. Well, if you look at centralized networks, there's a central control node that controls all the knowledge, all the wisdom, and has all the power, because if you own that centralized node, you can change any data and manipulate it as you wish. In a decentralized network, it's a little more difficult, but still you have central nodes. You see these decentralized installations and networks typically in email infrastructures, for example. And distributed networks is what we see today with blockchain technology, where you put something into this distributed network, and it gets spread to all nodes over various and different ways. That makes the entire network very, very fail-proof, yeah, and very stable. I don't know if you've seen these kind of things before, but how does a blockchain work? Actually, it's a set of blocks where you have transactions built in that are linked together with hashes. So a block contains always the hash of the previous block, and if you want to modify a block, that hash results in something different, and then you see that the chain is broken. And if you have a distributed network, as we had it here before, on the right side, you could imagine that having something broken at one node, all the other nodes around it could technically fix it. And this is what happens. So if somebody manipulates data in a blockchain, it automatically heals itself. Yeah? I mean, the more blocks you have, the more complicated it becomes to modify things. Talking about hashes, what are hashes? Hashes are cryptographic functions. Very quickly as an introduction, because they said it's the beginner's class, so I want to mention hashes briefly. They create an SHA-256, for example, as one of those hash algorithms that we typically use. They create 64 characters and numbers of kind of random code. So when you hash the word CEBIT 18, this is the result that you get on the one side. If you change a little bit, have you seen it? So that's the original, yeah? And there we have manipulated something. It's the B in the middle, yeah? The hash result is totally different. So if you manipulate data, the hash result is totally different, and by doing so, you can easily identify if data has been manipulated. You just hash it again and again and again. If the result is the same, the data has not been manipulated. If the hash is something different, you can be sure that data has been manipulated. And that's the underlying idea of blockchain. Like, why is it so trustworthy? Because if we hash something, then we can find out easily, has the data that I'm looking at been manipulated or not. We can control it. Yeah? Hashes also work with different content, so you don't have to only use strings, like here's CEBIT 18. You can also hash cat images, for example, because there's so many of them on the internet, or anything else. And it always results in 64 bytes as a result, which is interesting because giving out hashes to somebody, does that person not tell what the original data was? So looking at a hash, I could never ever tell that was an image, that was a video, that was a voice file, that was a Word document, that was like a secret contract that I had with my employees or whatever. Yeah? It's just a hash. Yeah? So giving out hashes and publishing hashes does not give out any person-related data or any confidential data. So giving out hashes does also not break GDPR as we have it today. Good. That's been said about hashes and blockchains. But what can you do with blockchains? You've probably heard a few interesting use cases already. There's so many wild ideas out there that you can do with blockchain that they're not countable anymore. And people say, well, there's something that we could do, so let's try to do it with blockchain. So if you go to IBM at their booth out there, you could even find bicycle locks, bike locks, that are put on the blockchain. Yeah? And other interesting things. Yeah? And there's more of them. Yeah? In various areas, it's healthcare, and I'll have a few very simple use cases that I'll talk about later, where I could explain how people make the first steps with blockchain and not the complicated business networks. But looking at what are the use cases out there and how is blockchain adapted today, we have a saying in Germany, and I've learned that they have the same saying in the United States as well. I don't know if they have it in the country where you come from, but that saying goes like, if you have a hammer, the world looks like a nail. Yeah? So that's kind of how we act with blockchain today. So we have blockchains, we adapt it to everything that's out there that has zeros and ones and it doesn't move. Yeah, so let's just, oh yeah, we have Word files, we want to store them. Yeah, let's store them on a blockchain. Yeah, we have messages with our customers. Yeah, let's store them on a blockchain. Let's exchange that data with our customers over blockchains. And I've heard the speech before, and that was already said, so think about what you really want to do. Think about how it could make sense, and think about how it could be profitable for you as well. Huh? And then there came Karl Wüst from the Eidgenössische Technische Hochschule in Zürich. He's a PhD candidate, and he wrote a very, very interesting white paper That white paper is called Do You Need a Blockchain? And he had a decision tree in that white paper, so I copied that into this presentation. And to make it a little easier to read, the decision tree is, do you need a blockchain? Well, probably not. So in most cases, blockchain adoption in the use cases or in the proof of concepts that we see today does not make real business sense. But there are, like, I make my living out of blockchain, so why am I hammering on this technology? There are a few things that you can do really good with blockchains and where blockchains are really good at, like tamper-proof repositories. As said before, if you store something on a blockchain, you can never, ever change it again ever after, or you cannot delete it. Yeah? So better do not store email addresses on blockchains because people have the right to be forgotten and you cannot delete email addresses, so you don't want to store that on blockchains, but you want to store other data on blockchains. Blockchains can, in asset exchange, eliminate intermediaries. It can do peer-to-peer communications. It can do peer-to-peer transactions directly, and thus they can do frictionless exchange of digital assets. Typical use cases that we see out there, like out of these many, many different things that I saw, that I just showed, the main things that we typically see are supply chain management, provenance, proof of authenticity, and verification of identity. So you have traceability of goods, you have the transparency over what's going on, you have the security, you can trust that the information that you see has not been tampered with. It's very efficient, it fires collaboration, and the auditability is a key issue. And I'll talk about a few use cases that we see there and that we've done with customers in a few seconds. Blockchain limitations, though. It's scalability, cost, interoperability, and data privacy. As said, if you store data on a blockchain, everybody who has access to that blockchain can read it. So if you want to store your shipment letters on blockchains, your competitors might be able to read, if they're using the same blockchain, how much goods you ship to whom. Or if you store my email address on blockchains and I come to you and say, hey, you know, here's the GDPR and please forget me because I want to be deleted, well, you're in trouble. So data privacy is a thing. Scalability. Public Ethereum, like one of the larger blockchains that we know out there, can do roughly between 6 and 8 transactions per second globally. So if each of you would want to exchange money with 2 persons out of this group over Ethereum, we would end up waiting until tonight or tomorrow morning until all the transactions are through. So it's slow and it's costly. Doing a transaction over Bitcoin costs you at the moment roughly $20 to $25. So if I owe you $10 and I want to send you these $10 over Bitcoin, I would end up paying $35 and you would only get 10, and the 25 would be with the miners. So cost is also an issue if you run transactions on public blockchains. But as I said, I make my money out of it. I want to make this work. The moderator just said I'm doing product management for 30 years now. I just gave up a 19-year-old corporate career to start with a startup. I do have 2 kids. I do have a house to pay off, and I still take the risk to work with blockchain. Why do I do that? Because I personally believe that blockchain has the potential to change the world again. And if I did product management 30 years ago, you might imagine that I did change the world a little bit in those last 30 years. At least in the very beginning, because then I was selling email. And email was something that people didn't have, so they were exchanging data through floppy disks over postal services and these kind of things. So it took a long time to exchange data, or even within an office building. And then I came around the corner and said, hey, I can solve your problem. I have email. And they said, like, ooh, this is a new technology. Do we really need that? Email? Yeah. That was 30 years ago. Yeah. So I had the chance to change the world a little bit to the better, and now I see blockchain as the next chance for me to change the world a little bit. Again, the moderator said say something about you personally, so I did. Good. What did we do with blockchain and how did it get adopted recently? 3 weeks ago, I was at the Museum für Kommunikation in Berlin, the Museum for Communications in Berlin, and I did a product launch together with a company that's exhibiting here at CEBIT. It's called Ferrari Electronics. No, they don't have anything to do with the cars. They are a vendor of fax servers. Fax servers. Yeah, they're still around. And there's still a lot of use cases where fax makes sense. And they're selling these servers. They have made their business out of it for many, many years, and they're still surviving. They're profitable and all these kind of things. So what we did is we integrated fax servers and Cryptowerk's technology. And what Cryptowerk does is we take hashes of data and store them on blockchain. So if you take a hash of data and store it on a blockchain, by doing so, you can prove that the data that you have has not been manipulated afterwards. So what happens now is integrating Cryptowerk's technology and blockchain into fax servers enables the fax server users or the customers of Ferrari to prove that their inbound and outbound traffic, the faxes that they sent and received, have not been tampered with. And one of their largest customers is the Techniker Krankenkasse, which is one of the largest and technically most advanced health insurer in Germany. And they receive tens of thousands of faxes every day from doctors and hospitals around Germany, and they want to make those auditable and tamper-proof. And that's what they use the technology for. This is another thing. That's actually the proof of two professors having manipulated DNA sequencer data in order to look better to their colleagues. So that's breast cancer research data or information that you see there, and two professors that wanted to shine and rise in the public manipulated that data. Yeah? And I personally think that this is a very bad idea. Yeah? Fumbling around with breast cancer research data results in medicine that comes out and drugs that come out that don't work, or they do harm to people. Yeah? And fumbling around with breast cancer or any cancer research thing is, from a moral standpoint, you don't do that. Yeah? No. So what we're doing now is we're applying blockchain technology to medical research data. We just demoed that at ACHEMA, which is a process technology fair in Frankfurt that happened also this week, together with two startups, Essentim, you should look them up, and Innomi, also very interesting. They create little sensors, Bluetooth-connected sensors that gather medical research data in incubators, like in these boxes, and send them via Bluetooth to a gateway and from there into databases. And on that gateway, we put Cryptowerk's API to make the data that comes out of these sensors tamper-proof. And by doing so, the researchers get data where they can prove that handing out this data to somebody else, they have not manipulated it. Yeah? That shortens the time that the pharmaceutical industry needs to produce drugs. Looking at drug research, how it works today, I've been talking to Pfizer 2 weeks ago in Vienna. They told me they find a molecule that might be very interesting for them and that could result in some drug that heals some rare disease, which is what Pfizer focuses on. And by finding that molecule and filing a patent for that, and then doing all their research until they have a drug in the pharmacy, it takes 15 years. So they have to invest 15 years in research, and then they have a drug in the pharmacies, and 5 years later, the patent expires and everybody else could copy it, which is what happens. So they have 15 years of research and 5 years to sell their drugs, and then the price drops dramatically. Yeah? So every single day that they are faster or shorter in their research time makes them millions. Yeah? So it's very, very interesting to have tamper-proof research data in all steps of that medical research chain that happens from the very beginning, from the detection of molecules until the clinical trials at the far end, because tamper-proof data makes all the processes that are bound around the entire research a lot faster. Another thing is there's the DSCSA, the Drug Supply Chain regulation in the United States that says you must prove that if you take drugs back from a pharmacy as a wholesaler and you resell them, you must prove that you are only accepting non-counterfeits, original products. So we built together with SAP, Merck in the United States, and AmerisourceBergen, apps that enable the wholesalers and the pharmacists to check if products are tamper-proof or not. And we use, this is the SAP track and trace application that's running there, and we use the blockchain technology and store the scan events and drug data as hashes on the blockchain to make the scan events tamper-proof. And by doing so, we can prove that products that are accepted from the pharmacists are not counterfeit. This is also achieved by serializing the boxes, as you could see it here. This also could apply, of course, not only to drugs. You could apply that to any product that suffers from counterfeits, like shoes or watches or anything else. Yeah? Another thing that's happening is, do you trust your supermarket when they tell you that your beef that you're buying is organic? You know? I have been buying organic salmon for a while at a supermarket, and they have QR codes on that salmon boxes, and if you scan them, it tells you where that salmon got caught. And doing that for half a year, and like every second month scanning one of these boxes, it resulted in the very same location in the Indian Ocean. So I was wondering, either they print the same QR code on each and every salmon box, they lie to me, or there is some kind of a salmon volcano coming out of the sea where all the salmons for the supermarket jump out. So trust, customer trust is a thing that those supermarket chains want to regain, and they're going to use blockchain technology to make themselves more transparent to you. So they will give you apps in the near future, like in the next 3 months this stuff is coming out, where you can scan your products and you can see the cold chain, you can see the supply chain of the single product that you have been buying, and they hand that data out to blockchain, so it is not the real data, but the hashes of that data, so they make it provable through blockchains, so that you can trust that data a little more. Another counterfeit example is airplanes. So it's said to be between 3.5% and 8%, those are two numbers that I have heard, of all the spare parts of planes are counterfeit, which is a huge problem for the industry. And they're spending a lot of money to get around that, and we're talking to Boeing and Airbus currently to help them making their spare parts counterfeit proof. Or automotive industry. You've probably seen this person before, but imagine how awesome the world would be for Elon Musk if he could easily prove that the poor guy that ran into that truck roughly a year ago and died in that unfortunate accident turned off his autonomous driving system 7 minutes before that accident. So Elon Musk does have this information. It is stored in a log file at Tesla, at the automotive, at the car IT platform. So whenever you drive a Tesla and you turn on the autopilot or turn it off, the car tells the IT platform, hey, turn on, turn off. Pulling this information out of a log file and say, hey, world, here, this is the proof that this guy ran into the truck by himself, everybody would say, yeah, Elon, you're a nice guy. We trust you, kinda, but you're automotive. So can you prove that you have not afterwards manipulated that data of that autopilot in that log file? He can't, until he uses something like our blockchain technology, where it can anchor these kind of informations in blockchains and make it tamper-proof. Or geospatial data, satellite and aerial imagery, and these kind of information. We're working with a company from Munich called Cloudeo. We're providing a marketplace for sat imagery and these kind of information, and they anchor their images into blockchains to make these images tamper-proof. You've probably seen that image before. This is when the Russians said that a MiG that should have been there, which was not, which is a fake, shut down MH17, the Malaysian passenger airplane 3 years ago. And the Russians wanted to tell the world that this was the reality. Unfortunately, it was a fake. Or last but not least, Microsoft and GitHub. Microsoft just bought GitHub, and if you're a developer or if you have developers in your teams, imagine how awesome it would be for them to just check in code and it would be automatically tamper-proof. So if you get audited, if you run through software audits, so for example, if you're doing business with American banks and they want to know which kind of version was running when, you could easily prove what kind of state was in production and these kind of things. Looking at blockchain for a few seconds from a investment perspective, I personally think we got to be careful. Last year in the United States, venture capitalists invested roughly $1 billion into blockchain technology, so it's a huge market there. In China, they invested 30 billion, 30 times more. And in Europe, it was not even $500 million. Yeah. So I think personally, and this is my call to Europe, invest in blockchain. It's a huge technology. It's worth looking at it. It will change the world tremendously. But if we don't do anything, it's going to look like that, and Europe's not even on that picture. Yeah. Wrapping it up, do you need a blockchain? Well, maybe yes. When do you need a blockchain? Whenever you need digital trust. So yes, you can do ecosystems. Yes, you can do, you can exchange information on it, but this is the second or maybe the third step. And as it was said, I'm doing the beginner's class here. What are the first steps? If you have data that is, that needs to be auditable, that needs to be provable, where would trust help you in your projects or in your business processes? Blockchain technology could be a very easy to accomplish way to do that. How likely would it be that your project will survive the proof of concept, POC, so explaining abbreviations here, phase? Yeah. Look at things where you think, okay, if I do that and I need trust in this business process, it's going to stay there for a couple of years and not only a couple of months. At the end, you will be able to say, I do something with blockchain, and it's good for my business. We learned a lot, and we helped also other people around it. The company I've been working for was founded 2016. It's an American startup based in Silicon Valley. Half of the team is German. That's where the latter half of the name comes from. It's Werk, and crypto is the American. Other half, we have expertise in cryptography and enterprise software. So as you've heard, I've been doing tech product management for 30 years, done that a while. Yeah, and this is my contact data. So if you want to have that presentation, if you want to have that slides, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Take a picture of me, tweet it. There's my Twitter handle as well. Thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Bernhard. I appreciate it for this intro. I'm sure you have a bunch of questions. We have time for a bunch of questions before you also be available for an Ask Me Anything in the Ask Me Anything section behind, right?
Exactly.
If you want to ask private questions or you want to reflect a little bit before your questions, no problem. Bernhard is going to be there just in the next, well,
I'll just get rid of the microphone and then I'll be over there.
Fantastic. But are there questions right now from the audience for Bernhard? Doesn't look like it. Well, then we'll take a little break, and I appreciate you coming here. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.